Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are taking a look at another 2020 Collecta figure, as I recently got pretty much the entire rest of the line of 2020 Collecta figures, so I have them all here to look at, so we're running through them as the days go by, but this is their standard Mapusaurus. And if you happen to have seen my older Mapusaurus review, the deluxe version they released only a few years ago, you'll know that that's probably one of, if not my favorite Collecta figures of all time. I absolutely am in love with the deluxe version of the Mapusaurus. So once I found out that they were creating a newer version, I was super interested, very, very excited about it. And having the kind of like a standard version to go along with your larger version now gives pretty much anyone the opportunity to own one, because if you don't want to have that larger version that takes up too much room, you can purchase this smaller one, which I think the only real difference, of course, as far as the sculpt is different, as far as the positioning and everything goes, but it looks very similar to the previous version as far as the appearance to the dinosaur goes, but we have a different paint scheme. The older one was a grayish coloration. This one is a greenish coloration, so we now have some variation within the colors of our Mapusaurus figures. But this one is just absolutely beautiful, just like the last one. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Mapusaurus, you can see some really nice scales all over the face sculpt of the dinosaur. Again, just like pretty much every theropod that they've released this year, you see many different varying sizes of scales, and it just looks really, really beautiful as far as the sculpt work goes. Very nicely painted eyes with a beautiful black, given a very nice gloss coat, so they shine extremely realistically and look very lifelike and alive. The head sculpt sports a really beautiful green coloration, and it actually has a few different tones of green included, and I do really quite like the greens on the figure. Very nice darker greens, and I think they look extremely natural as far as the color choices and the tones they've used. You can also see like a reddish brown coloration here on the lower jaw, and that appears on both sides there, as well as up here on the top of the head of the dinosaur that runs along like the crest over the eyes and everything right there. That looks really cool as well, and I think that plays off of the green in beautiful fashion, giving a little bit of flashiness to the head of our Mapusaurus, but nothing that's over the top, and I think it all looks extremely natural and ties together quite beautifully. If we look at the inside of the mouth, you can see that it's a purplish coloration for the inside of the mouth there. You can see the tongue quite nicely sculpted right there. It's a little hard to focus on it. The inside of the upper side of the mouth also has some beautiful detailing and sculpt included in there. You can see the teeth primarily are painted pretty nicely for the most part. There's a little bit of sloppiness here and there, but I don't think it's anything at all to complain about, and honestly looks really quite nice in every angle that I can see as far as the mouth goes. So very nicely done. I was a little concerned with that, getting it out, because actually looking at the Allosaurus that Collecta had released this year, it did have a few issues with the inside of the mouth, but that is not the case here on my Mapusaurus. You can also see that it has some very cool detailing here on the underside of the lower jaw as well. If we get a closer look there, you can see that. It looks really, really cool. And you can see some very nice skin detail, kind of skin bunching up and skin folding and reacting right there behind the neck and behind the jaw, because the jaw is opening, causing that skin to kind of react that way, which is a really cool touch that they've added here as far as the detailing goes to this Mapusaurus. You can also see the ears sculpted out right back there very nicely. Almost can't even notice it unless you're really looking for it. You can also see some very beautiful osteoderms that kind of run along the dinosaur pretty much everywhere. This dinosaur is actually really quite nicely covered in kind of osteoderms, as well as some ridges that run along the spinal column of the dinosaur. As we lead down the neck, you can see how beautiful that scale work continues to look, and we get down here into the arms. The arms actually look really quite nice. They're kind of held into the body in what I believe is a very natural look, nice natural area for the arms to be kind of just hanging out in, and the scale detail continues to look really nice, and you can see that they've kind of dry brushed over pretty much the entire dinosaur. A tannish type of a color, it seems. It's kind of hard to exactly figure out what color that is that they've dry brushed over, but I think it brings the detail out really, really nicely and just shows you how beautiful the scale detail is on the figure. You can see the skin kind of bunching up right there as this leg is really pushing into the body. You can also make out like the hip bone right here as we lead down the leg. Very nice muscle tone. Those calves specifically are very, very nicely defined right there. Nice and thick calves, so it's a very muscular animal. Beautiful foot sculpt as we lead down here into it. You can see some nice scoots that run down the foot down into the toes, and you can also see that the nails are painted really quite nicely. dew claws also painted, which I always get concerned about with companies because a lot of companies like to skip the dew claw for some reason, but Collecta never seems to do that, so kudos to them for that aspect. You can also see the skin kind of stretching beautifully as this leg is pulling the skin forward here off of the tail and stretching that skin quite nicely. The tail does have a nice bend to it, but it's nothing over the top. Very nice natural look for the curvature of the tail. Beautiful scale detail here on the underside of the dinosaur as well, and it gets to like a finer scaling up here. Very beautiful detail the entire length of the tail as we run out. It's a very nice, very long tail on our Mapusaurus with an almost elegant like curve to it. And then looking at the opposing side, again, beautiful detailing here, similar to what we had seen on the previous side as far as like the way the skin is reacting to the mouth opening up, because again, the head's kind of straight, has a little bit of a turn, but it's nothing major to it, so it's going to have a very similar look on this side to what we had seen on the previous side, and I think both sides look really, really nice. You can see as we move back into the body, this arm is back just a little bit further than the opposing arm, but you can see how the skin is kind of bunching up there due to the arm pushing into the body as well as that leg right there. So you've got some really nice skin folding going on in that area. Many different varying tones of color are included in this as well, similar to the Allosaurus as far as like dark greens and lighter greens and even like tannish colors and browns and everything really beautifully. You can see it has like a very nice darker green on the upper side of the body as well that kind of runs along the spinal column of the Mapusaurus. Really, really nice paintwork on this figure. As we move back here into the body, you can see the nicely defined muscle tone, again in both the thigh and calf region. Very nice foot sculpt over here as well. Really, really nicely done. Beautifully painted nails. And then just like the previous side, you can see the skin kind of stretching off of the tail as this leg is kind of pulling forward in the thigh region, but the leg itself is back a little bit, so it's just kind of taking a step, it seems. But the other leg is much more forward than this side, but both sides are really kind of stretching the skin off of the tail, and we lead out the length of that very nice curve in the tail, and it looks just as beautiful over on this side as it did on the previous side. So as far as I'm concerned, another absolutely gorgeous Mapusaurus from Collecta. You can see the underside here also sports kind of like that reddish brown type of coloration. Really beautiful scale work the entire way back, and of course we have the cloaca there with a little bit of a dirty appearance to it just to give it that extra bit of realism. But again, an absolutely beautiful Mapusaurus, just like the deluxe version, which I do think I like the deluxe a little better than this, but this one itself is absolutely awesome as well. So as far as the size goes on our Mapusaurus, from the head to the tail, you are looking at about 9.5 inches. It's kind of impossible for you to see it at this angle, but I can see it, so trust me, it is 9.5 inches or about 24 centimeters. And for a height to the top of the head, about a little over 2.5 inches or about 6.5, maybe 7 centimeters. And then to the top of the tail, you are closing in on about 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Mapusaurus from Collecta. And you can definitely tell that the figure itself isn't super large or anything. Being a standard figure, you of course expect it to be a bit smaller, but even for being a standard figure, it does still sport some pretty decent size to it, just nothing over the top. But this smaller size will now allow you to have a Collecta Mapusaurus in your collection. Whether you don't have much room or you have tons of room, you can pick either the larger or smaller version and include this incredible Mapusaurus in your collection. So this 2020 Collecta Mapusaurus, the standard version, is absolutely gorgeous, just like the previous deluxe version was. Truly unbelievable as far as the Mapusaurus sculpt goes continuously from Collecta. I think the last one was just so unbelievably striking that I just immediately fell in love with it. Everything about the appearance to their Mapusaurus I just love so much. And that continues over with this smaller version, this now greenish version. And this one, as far as I'm concerned, is almost just as nice as the previous version, but I think I like the grayish look on it just a little bit better. But honestly, this green paint scheme that they've come up with for this version is really, really nice, and I love that they've used so many different variations of green and different variations of color included with the painting of this dinosaur. I think the paint scheme is pretty much exactly, again, just like I had stated with the Allosaurus, what I like to see on theropods, because like it's a darker color, something that you absolutely could see this dinosaur hiding in the bushes and getting away with actually staying hidden until it found its time to strike. to take down whatever meal it was aiming to take down. So the realism of the paint scheme is very, very nicely done, as well as the actual application of the paint is really beautiful, as you have quite a few different variations of greens, lighter and darker greens, and even some browns sort of in certain areas, as well as a really nice dry brushing with like a tan over top of many different areas of the scales to really bring the detail out quite nicely, as well as a few variations of like a kind of like a reddish brown on the lower jaw, and then up on the top of the head you have like that reddish coloration. So the paint scheme is beautiful. The sculpt also is just off the charts as far as the detailing goes, and it's a very nice kind of like osteoderm type look. It's kind of loaded with osteoderms, but I think it looks really good on the figure, as well as some nice ridges that run along the back and the spinal column, and just some absolutely gorgeous scale detail all over the figure, as well as many different really nicely done skin folds, again, where the skin should be reacting to the movement of the body. It's all beautifully shown throughout the sculpt of the figure, and honestly, I think the entire thing is just absolutely awesome. The sculpt kind of just appears to me that maybe it's like running in for a smaller dinosaur to maybe take it down or something, or maybe a different Mapusaurus is close by and it's just kind of trying to show its dominance by crouching down and giving it a nice roar, or actually maybe it's just coming up from the underside of some sort of a larger dinosaur and it's about to take a bite. Whatever the case may be, it is still a really beautiful appearance to the positioning of the body, and as a whole, I love this Mapusaurus, just like I love the last ones. So if you would like to pick this up, I will include a link in the description to everythingdinosaur.com, as they just recently got the entire 2020 lineup from Collecta in stock, so you are good to go now on ordering any and every Collecta 2020 figure from Everything Dinosaur currently. So make sure you check that description, go buy this fantastic Mapusaurus, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.